episode of the BioHub. Today, we have a really special guest in Shalabh Gupta, who's the founder, chairman, and CEO of Unicycive Therapeutics. Shalabh brings over 2 decades of leadership experience across investment banking, large pharma, and now a serial entrepreneur, having founded 3 biotechs, including BioCycive in their successful exit, as well as Globavir Biosciences, and now at the helm of Unicycive Therapeutics, who are leading the charge to treat chronic kidney disease. So join us today as Shalabh talks us through his journey, building out biotechs from scratch and the challenges that come with it, as well as the biotech landscape. So Shalabh, thanks so much for coming on. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Good. Awesome. So let's start off with a little bit about you then. So what inspired you to pursue a career in biotech? And were there any specific mentors or role models who influenced your professional journey?
I started my career as a physician, as you know. Practicing medicine, the 2 main factors to go into medicine from the very beginning were, one was to take care of patients and somehow help directly to alleviate suffering. And the second part is just a deep interest in biological sciences. Practicing medicine helped me to achieve that. I was doing my medical practice training, doing clinical training in New York. The part that inspired me or sort of attracted me to biotechnology was the ability to be directly involved in bringing new technologies and products to market, and also having an impact that transcends one patient at a time, but to perhaps hundreds and thousands of millions of patients if the product is in the market. And I felt that over the course of time, I would be able to make that switch. So that is what transpired, or that's what inspired me to make that transition.
Okay, awesome. I think when I speak with people, it's often a recurring reason why they decided to get into biotech, and it's to help patients. So, yeah. Can you share an example of a moment that shaped your personal life up until this point?
So, during clinical practice, one encounters many new technologies that are either recently came into the market or innovations that are in development. My training was as an internal medicine intern. I had encountered at the time things that used to be called microsensors. The idea being that you could implant a sensor on into body and that can measure different parameters. For example, if you're looking for a, a place where you're looking to measure blood flow, there are sensors that were available. This is 20 years ago that you can implant and that can provide that data. So from very early on, I had ideas about developing those technologies on my own as an inventor. But what I found over my training is that they're not necessarily the only way to make a difference. It's not necessarily to come up with your own idea, but also help bring other ideas that are already in existence. So for that matter, it could be patented technologies, and that's how I started my career.
Awesome. And just to go back to Unicycive then, so can you share the sort of inspiration behind its founding? What is the core mission and vision of Unicycive as well?
So Unicycive was founded as a company and as a shell company, if you will, in 2016. In 2018, I acquired 2 different drugs and 2 different technologies to start the company. There were a number of factors involved in that. I found that nephrology was a space where not many companies are focused on. So I found there was a niche space where we could develop a company, build a product, and be able to bring it to market. Also, I didn't want to be in a hyper-competitive space like oncology or super crowded, however you want to call it. But I wanted to be in a space which will allow a small company to be able to create value. And second part is the standard of care. If you look at other fields of medicine, for example, oncology as being one, there has been a lot of changes. Every 6 months, every year, there is a new development, new improvement in standard of care. But in nephrology, there seem to be not much of a changes have happened, or even if there have been changes, that's not been the pace similar to what you see in oncology. So that was second part. And the third part was that the more I talked with the nephrologists whom I knew, I felt there was an opportunity to be able to address some of the low-hanging fruit or to solve big problems with a near-term solution. And that's what created that a lead drug, which is oxylanthanum carbonate, which solves
Okay.
a treatment for hyperphosphatemia.
Nice. I think, I mean, I speak to people all the time that I guess eventually want to be a CEO or have their own company. What are some of the key challenges that you faced in the early stages of building out a company? And then the second part, how did you overcome them?
I think any company, it doesn't matter. Unicycive, more specifically, in the beginning, you have to think about what is your value proposition, and you have to be able to articulate a thesis which is in a very concise and cohesive way. So our value proposition was that we had a late stage program that we could bring to the market in the near term and be able to solve the patient problem. So that was to the investors. But before I could even acquire the drug, I had to convince the communicate to the other side that this is an opportunity that I can take your drug and be able to advance it to the next level. So at the end of it, it comes down to internal conviction. So you have to be convinced first that this is something you want to do it, this is something you believe in it. So instead of trying to worry about the outside world, first I had to form my own thesis, which took me several months to spend time and understand what is the unmet need and where would a product like this could make a difference. And then you go out and convince the other company to be able to give you the asset, which we did. We acquired the asset from Spectrum Pharmaceutical at the time, and then build this story by talking to investors and being able to tell the story. So think about I often talk about the CEO's role is threefold. One is to always be telling a story. Number two is always be focused on bringing the best talent that you can. And the third is to always think about advancing the products that you have in the company. So those are the three roles that you will encounter. It doesn't matter what phase of the company you are. In the beginning, it is you acquire the product or you build a product or you develop a product. But those three things are continuous work in progress.
Okay, awesome. I think one of the most important things in biotech is collaboration. So whether that's with venture capital, research institutions, other biotechs, private equity, regulatory bodies, how do you foster those partnerships to try and drive success?
So we built the company by acquiring two drugs from two different companies. One of them was a outright asset purchase agreement, which is a more fancy word of saying that we acquired the asset from them, which is our lead drug. A second was a licensing agreement in which we acquired the drug rights to the drug from second company. From there onward, as you rightly pointed out, we went and built a team. So I have a team of people who believe in what we do. We call it a small but mighty, and nowadays everyone seems to call the same thing. But it's a thoughtful process of building people, bringing along people who can make an impact for our organization, and also fulfill the skill set that we don't currently have. So the collaboration is the spirit because you can't build a drug and bring it to market alone. So whether you talk about team members, whether you talk about other collaborators from other partnership, and then you also, as you pointed out, regulatory bodies, you have to work with them. You have to understand what they are concerned about so that you can get the drug through regulatory approval. We have partnership after we acquired the drug. We have done partnerships outside the U.S. So we have partnerships in China. We have partnerships in South Korea. So we think about the global world and realizing that we may not be the company that can launch drugs in every market. We wanted to establish those partnerships. Then it comes down to with investors. You have to raise money throughout the process. Biotech is a capital intensive project. So in the beginning, I had nephrologists who many of them became an investor. So that helped to build the company. And then we went to public investors. I think overall, one has to think about who are the stakeholders and how can you do not only good for your organization, but for them. So at each and every step along the way, you want to think about them. I always say there are three stakeholders that have been my guiding principles. So these are patients. We want to build products that help patients. Then there are physicians. Physicians are the one who are most often the ones who are prescribing the drugs. So those are them. When as a physician, you can broaden it, call it healthcare professionals. So it could be physician, it could be a
And then can you talk us through, I guess, the pipeline and the lead candidate in particular and where you guys are with that?
yeah. So our lead drug is a drug that solves three basic problems that exist in current standard of care. So patients who suffer from chronic kidney disease, there is 1 in 7 US adult that would be suffering from it, but most people do not know they are suffering from chronic kidney disease. Initially, early on in the therapy, early on in the disease continuum, it's a problem that only causes biochemical parameters to be abnormal. But when they go progressively worsen over a period of time, it starts to get really bad. Chronic kidney disease, when it goes to stage 5, or it's called end-stage kidney disease, ESKD, majority of those patients are on dialysis at the time. A patient, when they go to dialysis, they really don't have any other way to get things better. The only other option exists, which is a kidney transplant. And as you know, transplants are done, but they are not, there are not that many kidneys to begin with that are available. And there is a huge backlog of patients who want to be on transplant, both in the US and globally. In other words, once they go into dialysis, many of these patients will never recover. If there is any other end in sight, that is a transplant. So those patients who are on dialysis, dialysis takes care of all the bad stuff in the body, except phosphate is one thing that doesn't get completely filtered because dialysis filters do not take away the phosphate. So that becomes a problem. For a normal person like you and me, if we are kidneys that are working well, fine, no problem, we don't have to worry about phosphate because phosphate is present in our cartilages like nose cartilage, earlobe, and bones and teeth. Calcium and phosphate are present throughout the body. So that's not a problem. The problem happens with people who are on dialysis. They cannot excrete the dietary phosphate. So if the kidneys are working fine, there's no problem. But if the kidneys are not working well, the phosphate we consume through our diet, it has no place to go except to bind with calcium, and it causes two problems. One is people die from heart attack because calcium and phosphate combine together and cause coronary artery disease. And the second problem is causes bony deposition. So people will have soft tissue, as in like there will be bone spurs coming out and causes deformity, and it's also very painful and can cause fractures. So those are the two problems. Each milligram per deciliter increase in serum phosphate causes people to die from cardiovascular problems, with the mortality rate going up 10 to 15% and hospitalization rate going up 10 to 15%. So this is a problem. 500,000 patients in the US suffer from this problem, and commercially, over $1 billion sales annually is focused on addressing this problem. There are 6 approved drugs. So there are other products on the market, big commercial opportunity products on the market. What is missing? These are 3 things. Number one, people have to take a large number of pills. So many of these patients are taking 12 to 15 pills per day. And these patients have to take these pills for the rest of their life. And that's number one. Number two is that the other issue is that these patients have to take, if they don't take large number of pills, they take small number of pills, and these are large size pills. So that is a palatability, and the palatability comes from that these patients have to chew the pills, and people don't like chewing the pills because these pills have to be chewed into fine paste, or else they don't get absorbed. And the third thing is that these pills taste horrible because they're actually metal in that. So our drug, oxylanthanum carbonate, solves these three issues. So it has got a potency. So it is very potent. So you can have a small baby-sized aspirin pill that can help roughly 70% patient with 1 pill with each meal instead of taking 15 pills, 12 pills. That's one P is a potency. The second P is a palatability. So our pill can be swallowed. If you put in a glass of water, it dissolves in 30 seconds. It's rapidly dispersing, but it's swallowable, so it doesn't have any taste to it. And the third P is the pill burden. So as I said, there are 3 pills that you can take, 1 pill with each meal, and that solves the issue. That allows us to be potentially best-in-class drug. We have filed a drug for approval, and we have a approval date for mid this year. So that is the timeline, and the drug has gone through multiple clinical trials, which we have published the data on.
Okay. Awesome. And I think so. Biotech is one of those industries where any sort of breakthrough, little or large, can have such a big impact on patients' lives. How do you foster a sense of purpose and commitment to the greater mission, I guess, specifically within your commercial team?
I have built the team by hiring people one at a time. We are currently over 20 people, and we would expect to grow as we go along. But by being thoughtful and selective, not just adding numbers, we've been able to bring people who are motivated, not just from a corporate goals, but also something that they want to do at this phase of their life to make a difference in people. And many of these people have 2 to 3 decades of experiences. So they've been there, done that. They feel that in a smaller team setting, with entrepreneurial mindset, they have both the ability to make a difference and also influence the outcome. And I think this is my goal is to give them the best of the environment and help them to be able to do the things that they do really well and make a difference for the organization overall. I've had no difficulty in bringing those people along. It's not easy to find those people, but when we find those people, we bring them along, and that is what has been the core, uh, strength about the organization so far.
Nice. And just onto success, I guess it can be defined in so many different ways, but how has your perspective on success evolved throughout your not only professional journey, but personal journey as well?
I think you have to have a very clear vision of what you are here to do. For us, it is uh, as simply said is this: we want to get our drug on the market to as many patients as possible in the best possible way that makes sense for the patients, physicians, as well as their healthcare insurance plan. If we can do that, Thomas, we will make money for our investors. We
Yeah.
make a difference for the society and address the thing we are doing. What I just said seems very simple because I can articulate in 30 seconds, but it's a really, really hard thing to keep on reminding ourselves. Getting the drug to market takes time, effort, and money. So you have to do the right thing by the patient, but also continue to think about investors in mind, also work with regulatory team. And then it's about commercially launching the drug. So again, thinking about this end goal very clear is always, we call it a true north, that helps us to focus on that because it is a path which is full of challenges. You have hurdles all along the process, and you have to keep overcoming that. No matter how motivated you are, you will find there'll be days and there'll be times that you feel disheartened and disappointed. But those disappointments should be temporary. The true north helps you to keep yourself focused permanently.
Yeah. And what aspects of your position do you find most rewarding or fulfilling?
What I love about working at Unicycive is my team. I walk into the office, I'm in my office every day. There's not a single day that I work from anywhere other than office. If I'm traveling, I'm obviously not in California. The biggest and the most rewarding thing for me is to find like-minded people who are willing to do whatever it takes. So we have meetings, so we walk into somebody's office, discuss a problem, and come back with a solution. An ability to make a decision quickly, to be able to move quickly, be strategically nimble, has helped us to continue to make progress. And that is something which is really, really rewarding. I think people underestimate how the effect of their team is on them. And it's not only for me, but it's also important for me to have the right environment in the company for other people to feel the same way. So we do our very best to make it a place where people feel they can be inspired. Because if I can inspire people, then every other thing sort of works itself out.
Yeah. I think from the people that we've had on the podcast previously, people is always the number one answer that people say. You could have the best tech, the best science, the best investors, but I guess when it really comes down to it, people is the number one, and that's yeah. A lot of people have said a similar sort of answer as well.
Right.
Um, yeah. And then just to finish off, then, so if you could look back in time and give advice to your 21-year-old self, what would that be and why?
I would just tell my younger self to have more patience. And to believe that everything works itself out, and the things happen for a reason. Um, as you get older, you start to see the dots connecting more easily. But when you're younger, you want to achieve something, you want to focus on something, and don't necessarily ever see the full picture. So I think that's a perspective you get by having a little bit more of experience.
Nice. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on anyway. I think just learning more about the chronic kidney disease space is super intriguing, and definitely you guys as a company I'll be keeping an eye out for sure. So thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you for having me.